to the other big story, and for the first time since the 2020 Galwan clashes, the defense ministers of India and China have held a bilateral meeting on the sidelines of the SCO meeting that's happening in Delhi right now. India has sent a strong... India has sent a strong message to China during the first bilateral meeting of the defense ministers since the Galwan clash. A communique released from the Indian side said that Defense Minister Rajnath Singh categorically conveyed that development of relations between India and China is premised on prevalence of peace and tranquility on the borders. He also added that the issues of the LAC need to be resolved in accordance with existing bilateral agreements and commitments. He also reiterated that violation of existing agreements have eroded the entire basis of bilateral relations and that disengagement at the border will logically be followed by de-escalation. All right, let me now go across to our guest, Parthasarathy is former diplomat, and Einar Tangen, political affairs commentator, joining us live from Beijing. Parthasarathy, we've had 18 rounds of talks between the army commanders of the Northern Command, and then, of course, now we have the first ever meeting between the defense ministers after Galwan 2020. Will anything give? Because these two outstanding friction points, Demchok and Depsang, seem to be still unresolved.
Well, let me put it this way, that I've been dealing with these border issues with China and Arunachal since 1986. When they intruded, it took us years and a meeting with Deng Xiaoping before the issue was resolved. China will intrude. China is being aggressive on the Indian border into new areas. The way they did it in Ladakh earlier, they're doing it in Arunachal Pradesh now. In Ladakh, they've retained a bit of the areas, but the most they have left. We will hope to move towards that direction.
Why is that? What are they hoping to achieve by making these sort of pincer movements into forward areas? What is the game plan here? What is the strategy?
Well, there's one. One is tactical, which is to gain the best ground for you can. About a border you have had different views on. The second really is more important is they don't to put India, they think, in its place. Mm-hmm. That they will not succeed.
Okay.
That I'm very clear of. In Ladakh, they had to withdraw from most areas. We've left them with some. But certainly they've not got anywhere near the lake. In the same way, in Arunachal, they came in and they went back. So this will be a continuing thing. I mean, as I said, in Semrang, it took the intervention of Deng Xiaoping to get things moving forward. Okay. And here, I think, let me be very clear. Xi Jinping in India and the world has a reputation of being expansionist, trying to bully smaller countries, take over borders, whether it's Philippines, whether it is Vietnam, right across the ocean. This is Chinese policy has been expansionist. And we will also deal with it in a regional way, as we are doing within the Indian Ocean.
So let me ask Einar Tangen, it's not just India. China has had this sort of salami slicing, if you will, with Vietnam, with Japan, with South Korea, with other countries that it has maritime disputes with, Philippines, etc. So this is part of a copybook. This is part of a strategy by China to try and push its claims. If there is pushback, then so be it. If there is no pushback, then you get to claim those areas which historically have never been yours. So this is part of a well-thought-out strategy by China, including against India.
Well, I think Beijing would disagree with you. I don't think you can necessarily equate the South China Seas with the situation between India and China. That goes back to the colonial past. British bureaucrats deciding where lines were going to be. So quite frankly, this thing goes back to 62. The perception on Beijing's side is that it was India who was trying to be expansive at that point, and they were concerned, once again, that India might try to do something similar. This goes to this issue of trust, which has been broken. And unfortunately, it's very hard to mend. I don't expect military, defense people, generals, to be negotiating peace. That really is something for the Foreign Affairs Department, and ultimately would probably have to be Xi Jinping and Modi himself.
But Einar, the fundamental difference in the approach to the border question is India's position is it is China that tried to unilaterally change the status quo at the border. This was through the Galwan incident in 2020, as well as other incidents that have happened in 2020. So China needs to go back to the position that it existed before May of 2020. That's the Indian position. The Chinese position is, let's talk about all the other issues. Let's talk about trade. Let's talk about people to people. Let's not talk about this vexed issue of border until the other issues sort of move in full throttle, move in fifth gear. But these two positions are incompatible.
Well, yes. I mean, the two do talk at cross purposes, and part of that, I think, is cultural differences and perceptions. The Chinese say, well, if we can't agree about something, what's the point of talking about it? Let's talk about things we can agree on, try to build a system of trust. From the Indian side, they say, no, we can't talk about anything until we have defined this one issue. So in essence, from Beijing's point of view, India wants to define its issue with China over a few scraps of areas where very few people can live. So there's a mutual misunderstanding that goes back a long period of time. And as I said, from China's point of view, they'd like to build trust. It's just a question of how that can be done.
Okay.